we're going to start with the motherboard here, and I think what I'm going to have to do is just unbox it, and then I may have to switch tripods so I can sort of give an overview of what it looks like. So I'm literally unboxing this for the first time. Not a huge unboxing video maker guy, so bear with me. I'm going to explain some of the reasons why I chose this particular setup. And that thing looks nice. And let's see, I'm sure this is probably all just the extras. So take a quick look at the extras and sort of what we got going on here. So for the extras, we just got your SLI bridge, you know, no biggie here. Obviously, we've got a thick user manual. So we'll take a look at that. And let's see, another software setup guide. No biggie there. And let's see the other extras we've got. Your I/O shield thing. Antennas for the Wi-Fi. And it looks like a couple SATA cables. Looks like this might be another SLI bridge. Another SLI bridge. More SATA cables. Screws. Another antenna for the Wi-Fi. And there's just a few screws here. Probably for the M.2 slots or something. So that's all the extras. Nothing crazy there. And let's see. So we move this out of the way. And kind of big reveal here. So let's take a look at the motherboard and see what we got here. So take a nice look at it. So we got four. So one of the reasons that I chose this setup to begin with are that I wanted lots of PCI Express lanes. Mainly, I wanted them for the M.2 drives because I plan to use a few of those because I really like the speed and performance that I can get from these M.2 drives, although they are a little pricey. I did have a video that I just went through where on my current motherboard, I only had one M.2 slot, and cloning that became a little bit of a nightmare. So I made a video about it. I kind of documented it on my way through, and it turned out to be a bit of a ordeal. So that was why I wanted multiple M.2 slots on my next board. But on a lot of boards, the M.2 slots share PCI Express lanes with other things, and it can really affect the performance. So this board has, I think, 64 PCI Express lanes. So 48 of them go right here for you got 16.8, 16.8. So that's 48 of your PCI Express lanes. Then, if I read it correctly, each of the M.2 slots gets its own four-way PCI Express. That brings you up to 60. Then basically everything else on the board shares the last four remaining PCI Express lanes. So that means all 8 of your SATA inputs, your audio chip, let's see what else, all of the network cards, and it's got 3 network cards here. So still got some styrofoam on it. So you see that's your 10 gig connection right there, and then you get 2 regular Ethernet ports, obviously a bunch of USB 3s. And by the way, so all of that stuff, all your USBs, your Wi-Fi, your 3 network connections, 8 SATA connections over here. Sorry, I'm just going to do it upside down, but there's your 8 SATAs. They all share the last remaining 4 PCI Express lanes. So that is why I wanted a board where I could get maybe 3 M.2 drives in there, or at least 2, and then I'll have a spare if I want to clone something, and get the full performance out of them without affecting anything else. You obviously could do a 4-way SLI with this. I'm not going to, but I just got a 1080 Ti. That's all I'm going to use. I'm just going to use a single graphics card with this. So it's kind of overkill for me with that, but what I wanted was for the M.2s. Obviously, we've got quad channel RAM, so 8 slots. I believe it can do 128. I bought 64, and I bought a matching set. And I mean, I'll tell you, there is a lot of information out there with people struggling with RAM with the Threadripper. They just seem to be having a hell of a time. No one can get it past 3000 overclocked and get it to run stable. So at least from what I can tell, so I didn't even bother going that high. That's why I went with the 2933 RAM. And you know, you have to have the matching set. That's the thing with quad channel RAM, is you take a big chance if you buy a couple of dual channel sticks that aren't matched. You may not be able to get the system to run stable. So you buy a matching set, and if you wanted the full 128, you'd have to buy a matching set of 8 sticks that are ready to go to get your 128, and that would be, I mean, the RAM costs what the CPU costs, so I'm going to get into that in a minute. But this is a nice board. You get your heat pipe here, nice, I forget what they call this, but nice enclosure right here, nice big plastic. You got your heat sink here, and also over here, obviously giant TR4 socket for this chip. I think it's got 4096 connections on it. And that's another thing that people seem to be kind of bitching about, is mounting this CPU. Depending on which slot you get with the CPU, some are Foxconn and then some are another company. I guess the Foxconn ones are kind of tricky, so we're going to see what I got in a minute. And you got your Cineblaster. This board has 11, what's it called? I just want to make sure I use the proper terminology here. 11 power phase system to clean up the power that's going to the CPU. So, you know, one of the knocks on some of the Asus boards, I've always been an Asus guy. This is my first ASRock board. And I've always loved the Asus BIOS, and I've always loved the look and everything of the Asus boards. But when I was doing research on my new board that I was going to buy, I was just seeing that they were only putting, you know, like a 4-phase VRM on their motherboard, and it's just not enough if you're going to overclock. It's just, I don't know. I wasn't real impressed with that, and a lot of their other components seem to be getting chintzy too. So anyway, I went with this. It seems like a real nice board. A lot of extra. So you got a 4 power plug there, an 8 there, a regular ATX power there, and nothing else crazy here. Obviously a post codes right here, and I'm hoping those will give me temps. My current Asus board, which is the Maximus 8 Formula, that displays the CPU temp for me, or the motherboard temp, I think, while the board is actually fired up, and it's up high so I can see it. This one's going to be low, but I at least like being able to keep an eye on that, so you can just get an idea if things are starting to overheat or whatever. As usual, as always, I went with air cooling. I'm a huge fan of Noctua, and this is basically your only option for this setup, is either you go water cooled or you get this. There doesn't seem to be much else, which is great. I'm just really glad that Noctua makes a nice system setup for this. I think they make the best CPU coolers by far. They're silent, they're huge, they're durable. I mean, when you buy these things, you get like a letter from the CEO. And I mean, their customer service is excellent. They always come quick. I really can't say enough good things about Noctua. And I watched a whole bunch of videos of people that have put these CPUs in, and there really wasn't a lot of difference between the air cooling and the liquid cooling. I mean, it was like 1 degree Celsius between the two. So for all of the hardships that liquid cooling can bring with it, and I did get the extra fan. This comes with 1 fan. I did get the extra fan. And I've seen some people struggle. Sometimes they can't clear it and it doesn't work. So I may or may not end up using the extra fan, but it was $20. And compared to the rest of the build, it's not really a big deal. So here's the RAM. G.Skill Flare X, designed for the Ryzen platforms. Now, one of the things that if you're going to go with one of these Ryzen Threadrippers, you're going to see as you start to do research, people kind of tearing their hair out with the RAM situation. A lot of people bought much higher speed RAM than this, and they weren't able to get it to work. I think other people, or at least they weren't able to get it to work at the higher speeds. And then, you know, when you pay this kind of money, you obviously want to get the best speed out of it. So that was one thing that happened. And then the other thing that I saw was people, I think, were buying probably dual channel sticks and sticking them in quad channel memory, and that's going to cause you some issues too. So this is 4 sticks, 64 gig total, and it was just as expensive as the CPU. I mean, this was like 950 bucks. So anyway, I'm going to kind of move on from that. And then here we go with Threadripper here, and before I unbox this, I can see my battery's dead, so let me swap the battery and we'll come right back.